All right, time to dive into the papers and look at the big stories making the rounds across Nigeria. This is Freshly Pressed on a Feel Good Friday morning, people. Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life. We love to keep up with what's going on in the news cycle as well. Today isn't going to be any different. It is a rainy morning, well, in some parts of Lagos. I don't know if it's raining all over town, but I know here in VI it's raining. It's raining on Third Mainland Bridge as well. A friend sent me a video, so I don't get the weather anymore. Global warming, climate change, and so on and so forth. Hope we're keeping warm and keeping safe at this time. And if you're not keeping warm, the stories on the menu will warm you up, no doubt about that one. My name is Ayokunmi, and welcome into the show. Join us on WhatsApp and on YouTube as well. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Leave your comments there. WhatsApp, you can leave your messages at smooth 981 FM. Sorry, I beg your pardon, 0911 999 098 when I was still in YouTube mode. The number once again is 0911 999 0981. Short, punchy, to the point messages. I don't want to read PhD thesis messages, please. Let us try to keep them as short as and concise as possible. Yes, if I want to read those lengthy messages, I will go back to school. Yes, but please help me to help myself this morning. Thank you very much. All right, joining me to take a look at the stories on a Friday, you already know. And if you don't know, I will introduce them as I always do. Joseph Obari and of course AB Bozimo are with me this morning. AB, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Joseph. And top of the morning, rainy morning for some of you in Lagos, to all the wonderful listeners and everybody out there. Great to join you.
All right, Joseph, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, AB. Good morning, listeners. You're welcome to the show.
Right, let's dive right into the matters. Joseph, I will start with you this morning, coming to knock at your door. Let's talk about Electoral Act amendments. The Guardian is where the story is, and it says the Senate has constituted a seven-member ad hoc committee to harmonize and streamline lawmakers' contributions to the proposed amendment of the Electoral Act. Now, the decision followed a three-hour closed-door executive session held on Thursday, during which senators conducted a deeper review of the far-reaching electoral reforms. And, well, I can say that another committee has been set up here to take a look at this, and they've been given a timeline. Some interesting members of the committee, Aminu Tambuwal is there, Adam Toshomole is there, Danjuma Guje is there, and so on and so forth. What do you make of the steps being taken by the legislature here on this particular matter? Are we making any headway, or are we just moving around? A lot of movement. Sorry, a lot of motion, but no movement.
Yeah, so you can understand why there have been some anxieties over how the Senate has addressed this matter. On Wednesday, when they ought to have looked at this act, the repeal and of this bill, of this act, they stepped it down and said, oh, that they needed every senator to have a copy, to go through a copy of the bill to enable them to understand all the issues that are involved in the amendment and all that or whatever. And see, it was very logical for civil society organizations to feel very anxious about the way the Senate was addressing this matter, because this is a Senate that has been known to pass a bill in 124 hours. But when it comes to something as critical as this, which the House has already passed, which they ought to have harmonized, which they ought to have been studying. In fact, there should no excuse whatsoever that they are being given hard copies is even was embarrassing to me, because we expect that copies of this, even the electronic copies of this, whatever came from the House, should have been sitting in the computer of all the senators by now, and they would have studied. And what were they doing throughout the holidays? What were they doing? So it just tells you a group of people who are insensitive, who don't care about really what matters to the people. I suspect that, and I want to be proved wrong, that the politicians just want to make it impossible for us to have proper functioning system in this country. Because, and it makes sense because it doesn't serve them when things work well in this country. They are the main beneficiaries of all the distortions in our electoral processes. They are the beneficiaries. I dare say that these politicians are afraid that the day they actually give voting power to electorates in this country, they will be out of office. And I think that's the palpable fear. And so in the past, there have been always excuses why they couldn't get to do the necessary amendment. And when anxieties were expressed now, shockingly, INEC comes up to say, oh, well, that the present act has enough room for them to be able to deal. Because the anxiety of the civil society organization is that the timeline that is provided for in the Electoral Act for the various steps to be taken for conduct of election is too tight. Yeah, so now if you don't pass this act at the right time, there are certain things that will just not be able to happen. So those are issues. And these guys are not interested. They just are just like, okay, now you set up a committee to do what? To do what? If all the senators have studied this, so why are you setting up a committee to harmonize, to this, to do that, to do that? So what are you going to do when you all meet? So waste more time. And Nigerians, they are underestimating how Nigerians feel about all of this. Because last Wednesday, it stopped short of people actually storming the National Assembly because everybody was simply just anxious.
I hear you on that, Joseph. AB, I know you have a word to chip in here. Another committee, well, maybe tea and crumpets probably, but hey, get your thoughts in.
You know, the normal thing, when you have committees, the main focus is tea and crumpets. But don't forget two things. Even after this whole committee, Senate shenanigans are finished, it still has to go to the president's desk, and the president has the option of saying no. It happened with Buhari. 3 times he refused electoral reforms before his re-election campaign. It was only after he was re-elected that he agreed. So I'm not holding my breath.
No holding of breath at this point in time. Let's keep things moving right now. And AB, we shall be heading to the Daily Post newspaper, and we're going back to Anambra State for the 3rd time this week, if my memory serves me correctly. 3rd or 4th time? I've lost track at this point. Well, traders at the Onitsha main market have pledged to end compliance with the Monday sit-at-home, declaring their readiness to resume full business activities in line with the directive of the Anambra State government. The pledge was made on Thursday during an interactive session between Governor Chukwuma Soludo and market leaders from across the state. This followed the recent closure of the market and the prolonged Monday shutdown that has crippled commercial activities in the southeast. A lot has been said about the approach of the Anambra State governor, saying that he should have met with the traders, have a power with them as opposed to making threats, as he did initially. But looking at what the traders have said, that they're ready to end compliance with the Monday sit-at-home, does that tell us anything specifically?
Yes, you can make persuasive arguments either way about the governor's approach, and there are also, we've heard legal positions about people's rights and not rights, and none of them is impeachable. I agree. You cannot force me to work. If I say I don't want to work, it's up to me. But it has been always a grievous wound to my heart that people who are noted for being some of the most productive people, not just in Nigeria, not just in West Africa, but across the world, have, for whatever reason, chosen before. It wasn't a choice. Initially, there were threats, and they had now complied to the extent that even up till now, one of the more productive days of the week, they weren't coming out. Now, Onitsha main market has a reputation. And when we set aside, the political and the work hours, I remember watching that video with Governor Soludo, and because of what I do, I was looking beyond him at the structure. Go and look at the video. The structures were atrocious. And that's supposed to be like, is reputed to be like the biggest or best or most vibrant market in West Africa or something like that. And I like the fact that part of this agreement is that the governor has offered to either renovate or rebuild the entire market. You know, when you hear of reputable trading place, you think of Dubai Mall, you think of the Mall of Americas in Minnesota. I've visited Dubai Mall. When you are there, you get hungry to spend money. Now, one I've seen driving across the Niger Bridge, I've looked down at Onisha there's a new main market. It looks like they're putting Maggi cubes and sugar cubes next to each other to make a market. I don't know about this current main market, but the environment really does need to be improved. So I'm happy that as part of what they have agreed, they are going to improve the market. And one important thing the traders said was that there must be a very capable, visible presence of security in and around the market. That was actually where Soludo should have started with. First of all, given assurances that beyond or before insisting on opening the market, that is determined to put security in place, not just around the market, because you have to come from somewhere to get to and from the market.
Exactly. It
But
should be
that he is
statewide.
going to, yeah, people don't live in the market. They come from around the world. If it's the biggest market, it's around the world, literally. So the key thing that has been agreed, and Chukwuma Soludo has to liaise with all of our security forces to ensure that Anambra in general is very, very safe so that people will feel emboldened, encouraged, and indeed empowered to come and engage in the trade which they are very well known for and esteemed for. I think at the end of the day, we can argue back and forth about approach, but if this is the ultimate outcome, I think, feelings can be set aside and commerce can restart. In addition to the other 4 official working days, Monday should be added. That was 20% of potential sales gone. That is not a small amount, if you count the Monday to Friday. So
Right.
Ultimately, while I too will agree that who are you to come and force me to do something? A market is under a state government, and the government has a reason to want it to function in terms of revenues and all that. And yes, even the traders themselves, I think if they feel safer, will have a much better time trading, and it will be for the benefit of everybody.
For the benefit of everybody. At the end of the day, I mean, methods aside, I think everybody involved has met in the middle. The governor, the government, the traders. Now, the key thing is to see if at the end of the day, every Monday, traders can go to the markets safely, conduct their business, and go back home safely as well. That is the key thing.
Metric.
The key metric here right now, because a number of the traders said they didn't feel safe enough. They didn't feel like they would get to the markets without any incident and get back home. So now the government has to put their money where their mouth is and ensure that security is enhanced and normalcy can return to that part of the country. It's been lopsided for way too long. We need to move beyond all this and get things back to the way they were before. All right, Joseph, I'm coming back to you right now, and let's talk about our friends in black. At this point in time, I don't even know if I want to call them our friends at all. Looking at this story, we're stepping into the vanguard, where it says, as civic space shrinks, the Nigerian police force on Thursday openly condemned personnel attacks on journalists covering protests and other related civil actions in the democratic space. The condemnation was made by the Relations Department of the NPF, ASP Olamide Olubumi, one of the panelists at a multi-stakeholder roundtable on strengthening civic space organized by the Kinpact Development Initiative in Abuja. Now, Olubumi explained that journalists are not seen as enemies, but it is unfortunate that some police personnel attack them and also destroy their equipment. I don't know why it sounds like the police seem surprised that their personnel engage in such activities where journalists are concerned. And it extends even beyond the journalists. I mean, we saw the recent protest that happened here in Lagos, protesting the demolitions in Makoko and so on and so forth, how that transpired. So I don't think the police should be anyhow surprised by these things happening, as unfortunate as they are.
I would have been happy if the comment is coming from the Inspector General of Police himself or from some very high-ranking police officer, so that it carries some weight. This is an ESP in the relationship department of the police. Even the first public relations officer is not really shown this kind of concern about how journalists are treated. Even if he has spoken once in a while, it is not strong enough for him, for it to make the necessary impact. But the truth simply is that our police is ill-equipped, ill-trained, they are poorly trained. If you visited a police training college, you weep. You will not be shocked if you have sadists coming out of those places because they are dehumanized, truly dehumanized. If you see where these cadets came out from, where they come out from, you will, in fact, I don't know how anybody comes out of that place sane. At least I've been to a police school. I've seen what it is. I've gone into a lady who was in our company had to use the toilet and went into the so-called hostel of the female police cadets, and she ran back. They told her they still live with snakes and all the kinds of things. So it's appalling. Buildings, dilapidated buildings, roofs blown off, all kinds of things. And then you expect normal human beings to come out of that place. And so they see the society as enemy. Everybody in the society is an enemy. It's not surprising. So what my advice is that it's not just journalists alone they attack. They attack
Exactly.
everybody. They are like attack dogs. They attack everybody. They beat up lawyers. So what NBA did in the case of lawyers, the NBA decided to set up a standing committee that relates with security, particularly police. And it has some heavyweights who are lawyers, some of them are AIGs and all that, DIGs, who are in the police retired, and they are lawyers. They make up the relationship committee with the police. So that's what has reduced incidents of lawyers being beaten up in police stations. It still happens, but it's not as often as it used to be. It's simply, in fact, with the introduction of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act into criminal law administration in Nigeria, the police declared war on lawyers, because
Just
that
imagine.
act says that before your statement is taken, your lawyer must be present. And some other far-reaching changes it brought in. So most of the time, they just don't like the presence of lawyers in the police station. Or in fact, with any person who has the case, a client or whatever, accused, they will become very hostile. And in fact, what they do is physically pounce on lawyers. So NUJ has got to establish that kind of thing, that kind of similar relationship where they continuously engage at a high level, not at the level of an ASP. I'm not saying that he may have been hard a man, but he said something that is germane, of course, but the problem is not with the journalists. They say journalists should report the case. So when you report, what happens at the end of the
Exactly.
day? Yeah, what happens? So is the training, the component of civil rights training, human rights training that should be in the police curriculum is deficient, or something is definitely, but of course, the psychological part of the whole thing about police training is deficit. And that's why you have angry people coming out of police colleges to police us. So if you're not happy, if you're not healthy, because you have to sound in body and mind to be able to do the kind of work they're doing under very difficult circumstances,
Right.
challenges.
Right.
I recently had a conversation with a policeman. He told us they deliberately keep us down in order to exploit us. That's a police inspector telling me that he is aware that the leadership of Nigeria is deliberately suppressing the welfare and well-being of policemen in order to exploit their vulnerability to their own advantage. That's a policeman telling me that.
Hmm. AB, I know that you want to chip in, but before you do, I recall a couple of days ago we took a story talking about the recruitment of 50,000 constables, 40,000 people applied. And this looks like we're repeating that same cycle. As Joseph talked about, their training, their welfare, and so on and so forth. So we're looking to bring 50,000 more of these sort of individuals into the police force now.
If I mean, we are under police as it is. So if we can get more people, it's not a bad thing. But how do we prepare them and how do we treat them when they're in service? What I wanted to say on a brighter note was that in the recent brouhaha regarding Onisha, it should be stated that when some people in authority wanted the police to be a bit, should we say, firm with the people, there was a policeman who said that they are not empowered to deal with people, quote unquote. They are just there to keep peace. And I think that should be also noted and praised, because there was a policeman who tried to work within the laws that empowers police to, act with the populace.
All right, I mean, I missed everything. There will be some bright spots here and there at the end of the day, and we hope to see more of the bright spots than all the negativity we hear coming out of our security architect, the police specifically. All right, AB, let us step into the punch. We're heading to the north, Kano specifically, where the federal government has approved the construction of a 1 trillion naira metropolitan rail service for Kano State, aimed at improving urban transportation, boosting economic activities, and easing traffic congestion in the state's capital. The approval was disclosed by Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf while addressing members of the state contingent that participated in the 2025 National Quranic Recitation competition that was held in Borno State. AB, just to be a bit mischievous here, I mean, could this be the dividends of cross-carpeting, or is this something, there's something greater at play here?
That's the first thing that comes to mind, that wow, the dust is barely settled on the defection, and already, boom, there's a project of 1 trillion naira. First of all, let's start. Every major metropolitan area ought to have some form of organized transportation. So that's not a bad thing at all. But it would be really a sad statement about the democracy we claim to be running that this kind of project can only come about if the governor defects to a ruling party. That is not really how it's supposed to be. A governor should be able to get development projects. You can have your, and that just tells you, frankly, that the political parties, such as they are, mean nothing. Because politics should be about, the pursuit of differential policies. Maybe in one party we say, okay, we're going to make sure that lives 0 to 5 are blah, blah, blah. Somebody else says, the parents should take care of them at that age, but from X to Y, we'll take, you can have different policies on health, on education, on infrastructure. But if it takes, unless I become part of the ruling party, I cannot give benefits to my people, then we are failed in our democracy. But to the project itself, we've always said that Kano has equal or more population than Lagos and so on. I don't know how the Lagos metro system is serving the people, but I've seen enough videos. I think some people are using it. I'm hoping that we will also see that sheer amount of enthusiasm for the project as it's rolled out. It should be phased so that you don't have to wait for it to start and end before people start enjoying it. And we as a people also have to be engaged to improve our mindset towards public available infrastructure so that we cherish it and we shame and name people who try to destroy elements and aspects of it. But that kind of project, 1 trillion naira, is going to do a lot in terms of the economy, because you're not going to import people from everywhere. It's people there in Kano. And when people in Kano, thank God, is not one of the hotspots of terrorism, but other people from even in the region can now have a reason to come and find work. And hopefully that can also improve security in that broad swathe of Nigeria across the north. So this is a good thing. As I say, apart from that little mischievous sting in the tail that it took a defection to get such a project, it is a good potential project.
Oh, well, let's see how it all plays out. It's a big project, a 1 trillion naira project, and it's definitely going to have a ripple effect across board. So well done to the government at state and at federal level as well. All right, let's, gentlemen, we'll dive into this story, and both of you are going to just chew into this one as quickly as possible as we wrap up on the show. And this is in The Guardian, AB. Now, it's about the Bauchi State Commissioner for Finance, Dr. Yakubu Adamu, who was received with drums, dance, and fanfare at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa International Airport on Thursday, following his arrival in the state a week after securing bail from the Federal High Court in a terrorism financing suit. Just because of time, maybe I'll let you jump into this one. Interesting things happening in Nigeria.
I'll start first by saying, at the moment standing, he is innocent until proven guilty. So let's take that. And it's interesting that he would have this kind of voluble support and all that, but it is not unique in any way. In Delta states, when then governor, former governor Obari, who was actually convicted of crimes in court in London, came back, there was similar fanfare. So your supporters will support. I'm just curious to know how the EFCC and other people are going to make the case to prosecute him thoroughly. I'll leave it right now for Joseph. He is the one who knows more about processes.
Well, I mean, just like you said, it's a matter of EFCC being able to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. But if there has been link, if they have seen a link, a relationship between him and some people who are designated as terrorists, then he has got some questions to answer. If he says he transferred the money, he has to be able to explain how. And we're talking about 2 point something million dollars. And so he should be able to explain how
2.3.
that happened. Yeah. So where is money coming from and where is it going and so on. And we shouldn't take this lightly.
Not at
The
all.
governor has tried to suggest that it's politically motivated, political witch hunting and all that. But it will be interesting to see how the defense can prove that he is not guilty of this. And EFCC needs to be able to really prosecute this matter with all honesty and transparency for all of us to see how that link is established.
And just one
Yeah.
last word, $2.3 million that is not there in schools, in healthcare, in infrastructure. That's the question. So what was the priority in this alleged transfer?
That is the $2.3 million question that we don't have the answers to at this point in time. All right, let me take the messages. Gilbert Musa in Festa. Good morning to you, Gilbert. He said the Kano State government, the Kano State government's initiative on restoration of rail transport is long overdue. Kano in the 1950s and 60s was a business hub with an intersection of effective railway routes. Other states like Lagos should equally take a cue. All right, Tony Marine Beach says, if it's true that the banks in Onitsha are also shut on Mondays, then I don't understand where the government is coming from. Can there be real commercial activities when the banks are closed? I expected the governor to call for a stakeholders engagement because business is a synergy. He shouldn't just resort to threatening the market people because he feels they are, in quotes, common as well. I guess that's why he took a step back and said, let us have a conversation, let us dialogue, as opposed to his initial approach of, if you don't, I will do X, Y, Z, which
IGG, initial gra-gra.
But it achieved the results. So
Yeah, as I said,
yeah.
we can quibble over it, but
If
thankfully
you
they're
if you
talking.
understand your people and the language they understand, then you use it. At least if the stock brought them to the table, that's the point.
All right, Sunday from Surulere, good morning to you. He says, on the police, I weep whenever I see most of them, and I always speak carefully to them. Most of them are victims of a dysfunctional system and just want to eat. It's a very dangerous game to arm people who are traumatized as a result of being trained like animals. In a country where a spy police has spy written all over the uniform, who will take them seriously? We need to restore dignity and respect to the police force. May God help us.
Oh,
May God
well,
help us
let me
indeed.
explain. That spy means supernumerary. It means that the person is not a police officer, but is a civilian who is working in the police. So
Cosplay
that's what that
police.
spy stands for, supernumerary. Yeah. So it's not spy as in a secret
As an
person.
actual
No.
spy. Well, thank you for the clarification, Joseph. I very much appreciate that. Sonny, I hope that clears that up for you. Ajayi Oloriloa says, good morning, gentlemen. It's not surprising that the senators are not in a hurry to pass the Electoral Amendment Act as they are the beneficiaries of the chaos in our laws. I look forward to the day our constitution will be amended to make the legislation a part-time job with each state responsible for the attendance of its legislators at the National Assembly. Well, looking at the fact that that's something that would not benefit them, I also will not hold my breath on that happening anytime soon.
They hold the yam and they hold the knife.
I mean, Tayo Naja says that Ibori celebration was funny. Even a police officer captured in the frame was seen smiling. let the prosecution do the needful. We can only hope. Barrister Danokuda, good morning to you, sir. He says, good morning, crew. Even though he is still presumed innocent, generally in Nigeria, people who misappropriated public funds are celebrated. Like you said, gentlemen, it's not the first time or the second time it's happening. As Sunday says, thank you, Joseph, for the clarification. You are most welcome. Let me go to YouTube where KY Come Home says, it's Hamatan here in the FCT. Not too cold, dusty, and misty. Well, Hamatan in Lagos is, it's doing like the national grid off and on. We don't know whether it's here or there at this point in time. You should just pick a struggle and, stay. Anyways, we need to wrap it up on the show. Thank you all for all the messages and your contributions. Very much appreciated. Thank you to you, AB. Thank you to you, Joseph, for joining me. Real MVPs you are. Thank you very much, Joseph.
Always a pleasure to be here. And I want to say thank you to all the contributors from our listeners who did wonderful. You make it more interesting. AB, thanks so much for your very sharp comments all the time. Ayo, thanks for the platform.
Thank you so much, AB.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Ayo, and thank you to all of the wonderful, incisive listeners. This is a dialogue. We don't always agree, but I think we're all focused on moving this country forward. Have a wonderful weekend ahead.
A wonderful weekend ahead to you as well. Thank you so much once again. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. We're going to dive into the locker room at 8:15, taking a look at sports news, looking back and looking forward to the weekend as well. So much to talk about. My name is Ayokunmi.